passed in the assembly, and they flew off the floor. They were voted yes. They were very strong. One of the big things about charter schools is that we know that they siphon and defund public schools. So we're basically paying for two separate systems, which nobody ever really was kind of asked about. And the second system is kind of growing at the expense of our public school system, which kind of came first, right? So it would be really, really important, for example, in 1505 for local school districts to have the ability to say, you know what, there are too many, we're sort of oversaturated with schools and charter schools and public schools and parochial schools and private schools in our area. Let's be able to say no when another one comes to apply, right? But the way things are right now, the default is sort of set to yes. Local school districts kind of have to say yes no matter what, or they're given very few reasons why they can say no. So, and then if charter organizations go and they say they somehow get a no from the local district, then they know they can go to the county or the state to say yes. And that creates problems because, as you can imagine, if someone is up in Sacramento, they're not really kind of keeping a close watch on what's going on, right? So 1507 is really about kind of the same principle, which is that if you authorize a charter school within your school district, then that school would kind of have to really only open within that school district. None of this like halfway across the state. And I think the other issue tied to that jurisdiction issue is like, well, if it's an online charter school, what happens then, right? Because we all heard about how in San Diego there were these two dudes, one of whom is Australian, who's like ran off to Australia as soon as things got hot, right? And they managed to set up 19 online charter schools with fake enrollments, like who knows what kids are really attending, and they managed to steal $50 million that way, right? So this is like a corruption issue, this is a stop the siphoning issue, and it's also get big money out of politics issue because we know the charter lobby is very well funded. So 1505, 1507 would basically allow school districts to kind of get back in control of things, right? That was May. July came along, the governor added, or whoever it is that got to him, maybe the Charter Association, added in some amendments that basically took away all the good stuff that was in 1505 that came out of the assembly. So now we have the state senators kind of looking at it like, are we really going to go up against the governor? He sort of said, I'm only going to sign it if it has these things in it. So that's why a bunch of folks and I got together. We created something that basically says it's the People's Amendments. Right, the People's Amendments are, we want the good stuff that was in the Assembly versions put back in the State Senate version, okay? And we want the state senators to vote, to amend, to do whatever it takes to get that good stuff back in. And then we want them to move it through their process, and then we want the governor to sign the good stuff, right? So we're kind of taking the charter accountability piece, which we had always been talking about, and saying it's really part of local control and good governance. And those are the really kind of larger enveloping issues. So that's why I have here, if you go to the Facebook page for K-12 News Network, you'll see like a little app where you can click through. You can basically say, I'm one of the people that's endorsing the People's Amendment, that I'm really interested in seeing educational professionals collaborating with communities for good governance. I really want to see publicly elected school boards overseeing resources for good stewardship, right? Local priorities, meaning local districts decide the number and kind of schools in the district. And then local accountability, neighbors, families, elected officials, all in that one area, that one neighborhood, making sure that things are operating correctly, right? So those, I think, are like the four key elements. And so we feel like anything that comes out of this